up, everybody? How you doing? This is Brother Micah. I just want to do another video, just updating you on what's been going on. I know I got a couple of lessons that I'm backed up that I've been studying, preparing, just to share with you guys. But in the meantime, I just wanted to share a little bit on a personal note. This past week, my wife and I celebrated our 15-year anniversary, which was really a blessing to see 15 years strong. I'm thankful for her and for all that she's been to me. And even to my children, you know, I got 5, and they've been really a blessing. So we took them to the Dr. King Center, and we wanted to kind of give them just, you know, a little experience about history, just a little studying about the civil rights movement. And they've been kind of aware of him and other leaders and different things for a long time, but I thought it was good, since we're in Atlanta, to actually go to the center. Unfortunately, I've been here for many years and had never been myself. When I first came to Atlanta around, 92, 93, I pretty much was running the streets and getting into all kind of things and never really took the time to appreciate some of the historic culture of the city. I've been to Auburn Avenue several times. Back in the day, we performed at the Royal Peacock, and it never really registered to me that, you know, Auburn Avenue, what it meant to the civil rights movement and what it meant to Atlanta, Georgia. So I want to go ahead and share a few clips and let you guys see a couple of things that we did while there. It's more of a personal, intimate video. And I also have a few questions and comments that I'm going to do, like, I guess, a Q&A at the end of the video. And I pray that it's a blessing. All right. All right, come on this way.
A long life, longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will.
Are we walking down here?
Yeah, come on.
Are those false cameras or something? Those false cameras or something?
Let's exit. Come this way. Come on. This is a souvenir shop. We can go through there. Y'all.
Wait, why was somebody stealing it? What's the thing you're supposed to stop people from stealing it? The glass?
Yes, and cameras and the alarms and the police.
Glass stops everything.
Is that a real store?
Come this way. Not my dog.
That's so scary.
Yeah, that's scary. Oh, I think it is scary now.
Like Gandhi.
Who was he? I didn't hear much about it. Oh, those are his shoes? Those are his glasses?
That's what we used to wear, sandals and glasses and stuff.
What time was that down there?
He would have been Hindu. Uh-huh.
Looks good now. They do. I don't know.
That dress is kind of straight.
Is this over there?
How did they get it? It's pictures of the family side of
So that back, please.
She's beautiful. She was. 2000? Yeah.
I have the book. If she passed it home, I have the book.
So this is where he lived?
Let's go see.
He just was alone.
Me neither. Because that's all that I had color in it. I'm like, oh.
Oh, so
Prescott
everyone was
King Young
leadership.
Women's Leadership Academy. Debutante Ball. What's it about? 14. What's that? A show?
That's the
That was a
shovel.
planting ceremony. That's a shovel they use to dig dirt. Whenever you start a building, they
Oh.
shovel the dirt.
Is that him? Downstairs? I don't know if I go downstairs to know. I like
Micah.
Do we have to go in another elevator?
I had to come out.
Can we go in another elevator? I said, do we have He went to prison? He went to prison?
Oh, okay, another picture.
So what?
I get another picture.
You don't like that?
I can keep.
You must take this picture on my iPod?
Yeah, I can take it with your iPod, son.
Y'all look at me? Or y'all look at them?
Also, can't you?
Yeah, look at mommy.
Okay. Now look at mommy.
There you go. Daddy,
Hmm?
please,
Oh, y'all go back. My mama. That's what I was slide over to Joseph. Look at me. Good job. Okay, wait, you got my camera?
You still have your camera?
Oh, no.
Hey.
Okay, come here.
Go to him.
What's that?
What's that? What's that?
Come back. Ezra.
Recently or? Oh, yeah, they found a band. What's name? Lee Austin? Back in that day. And she was tired from getting out of work. She said, "Let me see." And the black man came on and wanted to see.
It's amazing.
So they started a bus boycott. No, she didn't. She lived to be an old woman. But they boycotted, meaning that they stopped riding the bus and they walked. They walked to work. They got up extra hours early and they walked to work because they didn't want to be mistreated. They paid their money to get on the bus. This is her brother. Wow, that's her brother. Yes, for that. Mr. Sylvester James and Curly. Well, it was probably like a gown, like a baby gown.
Stop running around, Ezra.
Get up. Did someone put that together?
I know, right?
Let me see that face again. It's so cute.
All right.
When the water leads over, it was gonna like.
Huh? No. Slow down, son.
Favorite foods. She was protective of him and couldn't bear to see him cry. As an adult, Dr. King said of his grandmother, "She was very dear to each of us, but especially to me." The children went to Young Street and David T. Howard elementary schools. Both schools were within walking distance of the house. Daddy King said, "In these and other ways, compared to the modern home environment, we ran a very tight ship."
Nation and in the history of black people in the world.
They're walking all these people.
Still right there, Andrew. Don't move. Stand ready to smile.
All of a sudden, tear gas began to burst in the air.
I had a concussion. To this day, I do not know how I made it from across the bridge.
You or
back
like
to the church.
Don't touch nothing.
Daddy King took his son out and told him
You can't help but to think
Stand there, don't play around, y'all. Stand there. Be serious, son. Son, be serious. see the cities? We got Atlanta to Selma.
I'm looking fine now, boy. I think you're coming out all right. I'll get over the station for you.
It was very difficult to carry. It was a great deal of fear, a great deal of violence.
Property could be destroyed, their lives taken.
If you said anything, if you dared to speak out,
There's always the danger of having too much. By some of the leading black constitutional lawyers in this country, they began systematically attacking through the courts all of the major vestiges of segregation and white supremacy.
Lots of role models that you can look up to. So he had a very positive sense.
And then the city started in Greensboro, most of what happened there. We started massing.
Just not the things we used to do. They come in and they sit down. We're not used to them sitting outside of us. I wasn't raised with it. I never have lived with it, but I'm not going to start now.
This method has a way of disarming the opponent. Its goal is in moral defensive. We consider the man and at the same time the works of his beats you develop the quiet courage of accepting blows without retaliating. If he doesn't put you in jail, wonderful. Nobody with any sense likes to go to jail. But if he puts you in jail, you go in that jail and transform it from a dungeon of shame to a haven of freedom and liberty.
I'm gonna see that welcome table one of these days.
The United States Supreme Court issued an order banning segregation within the state.
I want to get a picture and get a chance back.
Segregated black churches, Plainfield, church at that time.
Oh my.
And she came out of California to testify.
Oh my, who's that? Dr. Axelman.
I think the impact that Dr. King's legacy had on me personally is just the act of nonviolence, the act of trying to bring about a change through peaceful means. Definitely meant a lot. Growing up as a child, I mainly leaned towards Malcolm and his method more so because I had a quick temper and I related to the anger and frustration that he expressed and some of the things that he taught, you know, pretty much by any means necessary was pretty much the slogan. And I felt like however I gotta get it, I gotta get it. I remember as a youth, I used to wear my vest and a Malcolm X pin and call myself growing my afro and just going through that whole phase. And it wasn't until later in life, as I got older, that I actually began to understand and appreciate Martin's actual contribution and his method of nonviolence, which was something that a lot of people today look at as soft or weak. I know there's a lot of things that people may have said about his life personally, but just for the historical standpoint of the nonviolent protest, he really got a lot accomplished. I mean, with the bus boycott, with the sit-ins, and being able to actually cross the bridge in Selma and do the things that they did, they really made changes to laws. I mean, you're talking about a man who's meeting with presidents and sitting down and discussing, the issue of Black America. And I think Malcolm began to see it towards the end of his life after he fell out with the Nation of Islam, and he began to actually reach for the UN and want to actually sit before other nations. I think that a lot of that mindset he gathered from seeing how Martin was able to maneuver and deal with the higher ups in an attempt to bring about a change for his people. And I think that eventually if those two had gotten together, it would have been a whole nother situation indeed. So it was necessary for both of them to be taken out, unfortunately. But I do believe that the legacy that he has left impacted me in many of ways. I know when I first moved here, like I mentioned, 92, 93, me and a group of friends actually performed at Tri-Cities High School for the Stop the Violence rally, and it was a campaign they were bringing. And being, in the hip-hop scene, we wanted to kind of promote that agenda. I think Grand Poobah 360, what goes around comes back around again, is a track that we used when we did that. And it was a touching moment because Tri-Cities was a performing arts school, it was a magnet school. They had a big gym that they had just built, and we were some of the first ones to ever perform there and share the message of nonviolence. So it was really important, and I believe that a lot of what I heard of Martin's legacy as a child kind of flowed into that peaceful movement. Another thing that I recall as a youth in the 90s, I was involved with a program, a volunteer program called Tap into Peace, where we went door to door trying to talk to people at-risk youths in troubled neighborhoods and seeing what we could do to try to quell the violence, to try to keep, a lot of these young cats from getting into the things that they were getting into. And I think it was a success then. Atlanta, of course, has kind of regressed back to a lot of its old ways, but at that time period, we were able to make an impact. Even at the church that I was attending as a youth, we would go to neighborhoods like Techwood or go to like East Lake Meadows. And to some of y'all who don't know Atlanta, those were like, Little Vietnam and some of the worst areas out here. But we were able to go to these areas and, the women would work in the houses and clean up for the mothers and help them to change their children's diapers. And the men would pray and lead Bible study, and we try to reach to the families. And it was really a good time in the Lord. I remember those days, even though as a youth, I tried to rebel and kind of go against, but it always stood out in my mind how we could go downtown and see all that was going on in Atlanta then, the poverty and the violence, and to try to make an impact was really important to me. I think that his legacy lived on as far as trying to bring about peace continually through life. When I was more successful as an MC later on, I remember they did a thing called Think Big, which was books instead of guns. And it was actually Valletta Wallace, Biggie Small's mother, and Tupac's aunt who were helping put it on with like Left Eye and a lot of other people. And Keisha McKnight Paulin was reading, and all of the different artists or celebrities or people in Atlanta that time period, we all came together to kind of read books to children and try to convince them that violence wasn't the way. So I think Atlanta kind of has a rich history in the civil rights movement and in a lot of peaceful protests. It definitely is at its riots as well, but I do believe that King's legacy has left a stamp on the city, and that a lot of people benefited from that movement. I was honored, even while visiting the center, to take a picture. I met a man who actually came from, I think, Denver, Colorado. Lord forgive me, I'm not sure exactly what city. I think it was Denver, Colorado. But he actually marched with King. I was an older gentleman, and I got to get a picture with him and my family, and we talked about, some of the things that they went through. And it was really a touching moment, so I really enjoyed it. As far as if we've progressed since his assassination and since 1968, honestly, we haven't progressed enough. I think there has been some positive strides, obviously, You know, there's no colored section for the water fountain or for the bathrooms and things of that nature. But I do believe that the hatred and the vitriol of racism still exists. I think that there are still people who are hurting, or people who constantly want to hurt people based upon, you know, the paranoia or the hatred of their upbringing, or just the lie that they're somehow better than another individual based upon the color of their skin, which is something that neither of us had any control over. God made each of us the way he did, and we're all made in his image. So for you to be offended at a person because of race seems like such a petty and trivial issue. And you would think in 2017 that we probably would have moved on by now or would have been over. But in reality, just this past week, somebody graffitied, you know, LeBron James' house with an N-word right before, you know, a major finals game. You know what I mean? So you still have those that are ignorant. They're still finding nooses laying around in campuses. They had a situation in D.C. recently at the museum as far as covering for African American history, and a person left a noose there. They're investigating. That was just this past week. So as far as what progress we've made, when you look at our jail system and the way that the incarceration rates are set up, the way that a lot of the judges have a preconceived notion that you're a thug just because you came in with a brown skin, I think that a lot of this has to be worked out. When we see, you know, the situations where people are still fighting over Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown and all these people, and rather than recognize that a life was lost and that we need to somehow make peace of the situation, people are picking sides and just going all out. So I don't think we've made as much progress as we could have. I do believe there are those that are purposely agitating the situations and making it worse. You know, I've done videos and spoken out against hate groups or people that are trying to cause racial divides. I did a video of Pen America. We talked about the issues. When we look at people like men like Richard Spencer, or the alt-right or the white nationalist movement that are active today, actually trying to promote white superiority, or you have the, you know, the Hebrew Israelite groups trying to promote black superiority, you know, and the KKK trying to recruit members now. I know people personally who have gotten things tossed in their mail because they live on a nicer side of town, and it's assumed that they were white and they were invited to join the old KKK, you know. So to say that we've overcome racism would be naive and foolish. I believe as long as the devil is here, you're always going to have racist people. But I believe through the power of Christ that there are those who were former racists or maybe struggling now with racists, and that God can help them overcome, and that they can become saved and recognize other races as brothers and sisters in the Lord. I know Dr. King's dream of seeing the children play together has happened. I've watched my children go to playgrounds with kids of other races, and we've all come together and watched our kids play. And the Hispanic children, the Caucasian children, the African American children, the Asian children, they're not looking at each other as color or race. I remember one child came and was telling their parents, you know, this is my cousin. And the parents kind of looked uncomfortable, like, okay, what do you mean this is your cousin? This is little African American kids. You know, they probably would call it something else. We don't know. But just to see them saying that this is my cousin, and they're actually hugging and wanting to share their food and everything with the children was a truly blessed thing. And children are taught to be racist. Children are taught to hate. You know, it's not something that comes natural. The people who hold on to that kind of a wicked mindset have to pass that down to that generation. And unfortunately, we haven't stamped it all out. It's still here, particularly in America. I do a lot of listening to, you know, different stations, News Talk Radio. I mainly Christian music, but I listen to News Talk Radio, and sometimes the things that I hear on the station, both the callers and the people, or some of the things you may see even on YouTube, the level of ignorance is just astounding. The fact that people feel like, well, you know, slavery, just get over it. You know, it should be fine by now. I didn't do it. It was my grandparents. So what? You know, and you don't realize that the after effects of what people are feeling, the fact that there are people who do feel that they're being singled out. They are actually being singled out in some cases. You know, and I do know there are those that play the victim card. They're just using it for sympathy or to try to get over the system. But for those who genuinely want to see a change, those who genuinely know what's going on out here in these streets, those that have been there and saw that if not for the blood of Christ, that they could have been shot dead in the streets, you know, for various reasons. A lot of times people are guilty of iniquity, things that they, you know, if it's their kid, well, it's just young people having fun. But then if it's that child and they're of a different race, that's what they get, because they had no business out there, and obviously they're a thug, or, well, if they're white, they get away with it. Whatever the argument that you have, these type of things aren't helping us get anywhere. I think that coming together and having honest discussions and putting police officers and judges and lawmakers in place who are willing to follow after the pattern of Dr. King and other people who want to see nonviolence and peace in our society ultimately is the way to go. Will it happen? That's yet to be seen. But I know my job as a father is to raise 3 young men as best as possible and 2 daughters in a country to where there are people that will hate them just because of their color, but not make them a victim to where they feel like they're beneath or subservient or that they need to have a superiority complex over, but rather for them to understand who they are and the fact that as long as we're in Christ Jesus, we're even stronger, and that we don't have to allow the pressures of society to dictate how far we can go or what we can do or who we can become. But all things are possible through Christ. And I try to teach them that. And they need to learn a valuable lesson that no matter what the race of the person is, it's the heart and the intent that matters. It shows you what's really on the inside. So you have, you know, racists that are coming in all colors and forms, but I don't choose to dwell on that. I tend to deal with it when it comes. I'm firm about it. My stance is unwavering. I think that people need to have more compassion with one another and have understanding that it's hard out here for a lot of our young people. They are going through a lot. They're struggling with identity. Jim Crow and segregation did a number, and it didn't just fix overnight. No matter how far you think back it's been, my father experienced it. I mean, he was born in 45, you know, and he experienced a lot of things. And being a major in the Army, he saw a lot of things that have come across from all races. And he used to teach me when I was younger, he was saying, he's a son, not every white person is your enemy, not every black person is your friend. You know, he knew that it was good and bad in both sides and in all people that's possible. So I'm not going to ramble on with that, but as far as our progress, I do believe there's room for more progress, and that we as a people have a lot more to do, a lot more to do. My personal favorite quote from Dr. King, believe it or not, one of my favorite quotes from him is, "Freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed." I really do believe that freedom is not going to be given by the oppressor. No more than the devil is willing to let it be easy for you to follow Christ. No more than the devil is going to not attack you just because you go by the name Christian. He's still going to come at you. I believe the same with those that are oppressed. The oppressor is not going to relent, because those who oppress are obviously led by the same spirit of the devil. And it's going to take the love of Jesus Christ to enter into their heart for them to change. But until then, we do need to demand our freedoms from the oppressor. And through ways of nonviolence, I think, is a positive way. That was one of my favorite quotes that Dr. King ever said. And it was real, you know, that they're not going to just give it to you. You're going to have to take it. And if that means that you're going to have to educate yourselves and be careful about the paths you choose to try to live your life by, so that you can set yourself up or your children or your family to have more success and be at that next stage or that next level when they come of age, then so be it. You need to be prepared for that fight. So that's what would be my favorite quote from Dr. King. So like I said, there was a lot that we saw. I really liked the literature they gave, and, you know, the picture of the house, the tour. It was really a lot of information. If you ever come to Atlanta, you know, you can see Ebenezer Baptist Church in the neighborhood. I'm kind of holding that up for you guys. It's a lot, you know, it was really good. It has a lot of good dates and information, a lot of good pictures. And the best part about it, y'all, I mean, honestly, is the fact that you're not only supporting a great center, it's actually free. You know, it doesn't cost anything. You might buy some things from the gift shop or donate money to support. But overall, it's a good place to just kind of learn some history. And I saw people of all races there. I mean, from Asian to white to Indian to black. And it was really great to see all the people striving to learn about Dr. King and just the path of nonviolence and ways that we can better ourselves as a society and as a people. So I was really blessed by it, and I think, did you know, it's a good trip and it's worth going to see. Hopefully in the future I'll get to visit some of these other museums, because I know there are several in Georgia. I'm aware of ones in DC, and even the statue they built for Dr. King there. I got family up there in that area, so hopefully I get to make it out there real soon, Lord willing, and do some traveling and see some other things. And I've always enjoyed learning and reading up on history. Sometimes when you think you know a lot of things, there's always so much more that you can learn. You never can know it all. But I really enjoyed it, and I think it was a good trip, and I highly recommend it.